Hi everyone, my name is Mary and this is Mindful Movement with Mary. Today I have a 45 to 50 minute slow flow yoga practice focusing on hip strength and mobility. But before we get started, take a moment to look at the description below this video. Please support my work and subscribe to this channel. So for hip strength and thigh strength and mobility, we're going to be looking at the anatomy of a squat. So you may be familiar with squats from a more traditional fitness exercise routine, and they really are a powerhouse of strength. They really build strength in the thighs, the hips, and even the back. So they're a great exercise, but they're also a really functional movement. Human beings are designed to squat. We're designed to go to the bathroom that way, have children that way, tend fires, cook, and just hang out down near the ground. But in our modern society, we don't do those movements very often in that way anymore. So we're going to look at how we can build strength in those areas because they're really important for overall functional health. But also, you do go through a squat position multiple times a day without even knowing it. Every time you sit down and stand up and then stand up and sit down, you go through a little bit of a squat position. So we'll also be looking at that. For today's practice, you're going to want 2 blocks and 1 blanket. So gather your props and meet me laying down on your back on the mat. Oh, and one more thing. Before you lay down, we're going to fold the back half of the mat up to the middle, and I'll show you what that looks like. So I'm just going to fold the top of my mat down about halfway. I don't know if you can see that. I hope you can. And we're going to sit toward the edge of that fold. So you're going to sit right at the edge of the fold so that your legs and feet are on the floor or carpet or whatever surface that you're on today. And then lay back on your back. I'm going to keep my knees bent and the soles of the feet on the floor. You can separate the feet a little wider than hip distance apart and let the knees lean in to touch. Hands can be on the lower belly or down by the sides, palms face up, whatever's comfortable for you today. And let's take a few deep breaths to center our mind and body in the present moment and our practice today. So let's take a deep inhale through the nose and exhale, sigh it out. Inhale through the nose and exhale, sigh it all out. One last time, inhale through the nose and exhale, sigh everything out. And then let your breathing return to normal. Just being aware of the natural ebb and flow of the breath. Good, and then you can separate the knees, have them point toward the ceiling, bring the feet back in line with the hips. And we'll start by gently warming up the hip joint. So as you inhale, let the right knee fall open to the right. So keep the left knee where it is, let the right knee fall to the ground, and you're going to rest on the outer edge of the right foot. And then slide the foot down the floor so you're straightening the leg. And when you get to a straight leg, the last thing that happens is the toes point back to the ceiling and you're resting on the heel. And then exhale, draw the leg back up to the starting position. So we'll do that a few times. Inhale, opening the knee and sliding the foot down on the floor. Exhale with the straight leg, drawing the knee back up to the start. Good. Inhale, open the knee. Exhale, straighten. And then draw the knee back up. Inhale. And exhale. One more time. Inhale, opening the knee to the side. Straightening the leg. Exhale, drawing the knee back up. Good. Let's take that over to the other side. Inhale, open the leg. And straighten the leg. Then exhale, draw the knee back up. Inhale, open and straighten. Exhale, begin to bend that knee and bring it back up. Good. Inhaling and exhaling. A couple more times. Inhaling, open the knee, straighten the leg. Exhale, bring the knee back up. One last time. Inhale and exhale. Good. So we're going to go back over to the first leg again, and we're just going to reverse that pattern. So inhale, straighten the leg first. Then exhale, draw it up the side and close the knee back up to the starting position. Inhale, straightening the leg. Exhale, draw the leg up the side and close the knee back up. Good. Inhale, straighten, toes point toward the ceiling. Exhale, bend the knee, drag the knee up the side, and close the knee back up. One more time. Inhale, straighten. Exhale, drag the knee up the side, and then close the knee back to the starting position. And going over to the left, inhale, straighten the leg. Exhale, draw the knee up the side, and then close the knee back up, pointing to the ceiling. Inhale, straighten. Exhale, drag the foot up the side. Close the knee back up. Inhale, straighten. And exhale, close. One last time. Inhale, straighten. And exhale, close. Good. So now bring your arms overhead, and you can just keep them relaxed. Little bend in the elbow. Step your feet wide apart, wider than hip distance. And we'll just windshield wiper the knees, so letting the knees fall to one side and then the other side. So all of these movements we've been doing so far just to warm up the hip joints, to lubricate them. There's a lot going on. Hips are very complicated joints. They're mobile, they have a lot of muscle mass, and they do a lot of things. They propel us forward, hold us upright, protect our organs. So we need to approach them with a gentle curiosity. Just see what they feel like today. Good. So maybe just a couple more times to each side. Good. And then bringing the knees back together and feet and knees in line with hips. Good. So I'm going to straighten the left leg now. Hug the right knee into the chest. Give it a good squeeze up toward the armpit. And then begin to trace a circle with the toes. So drawing a really big circle, warming up the ankle joint. Ankle mobility is actually a huge part of being able to do a squat, because we need the ankles and the knees to bend in order to get the hips lower to the ground. So let's reverse that direction with the foot, making a big circle with the toes. Good. And then extend that leg to the sky. Maybe hold behind the hamstrings, flex the foot and point a couple times. Good. And then you're going to begin to bend the knee and release the hamstring. So you're bending the knee and you're drawing that knee toward the shoulder and flexing the foot. So you may recognize this position that if I was to hold on, it would be a happy baby pose, or if I did both, it would be happy baby. But we're only doing one leg and I'm not holding on. So what's happening here is I'm having to use the hip flexors to pull the knee down toward the shoulder. And this is actually the architecture of a squat position. We're just flipped upside down. Good. And release. Let's do that on the other side. So first hugging the knee in and drawing a circle with the toes. One way, and then go the other way. And then straightening the leg. Maybe you want to hold behind the hamstrings. Really reach the heel toward the ceiling. Maybe point and flex that foot a few times. And then releasing the hamstring and bending the knee. So drawing the knee, it is going to be a little bit outside, like it's drawing toward your armpit. Flex the foot, flex the knee. Really try to draw the knee down toward the shoulder without pulling. So you're having to use just hip flexor strength in order to do this. Good. And you can add the other leg here too if you want. If you want to practice this double squat position here, this happy baby, but not holding on. So I'd call it an open chain happy baby. Good. And release. Maybe you want to hug the knees in, rock side to side. And we're going to roll to one side and come all the way up to all fours. So unfolding the mat, and if you want a blanket under the knees, this is a good time to place your blanket there. And we'll come into tabletop position, shoulders over the wrists, hips over the knees. And do a few rounds of cat and cow. Inhaling, lifting the tail, dropping the belly, lifting the head. Exhale, rounding through the spine, push the floor away, drop the head. Inhale, lifting head and tail. And exhale, doming through the upper back, pressing the floor away. Good, so do a few rounds on your own with the rhythm of your own breath. You might want to go faster or slower than I do. That's always your decision. Yoga is always under your control. Good, and come back to a neutral spine. And I'm going to walk the hands forward. So I'm leaving the hips up in the air, stacked over the knees, and I'm walking the hands forward as far as I can, and then dropping the forehead to the chest. I'm trying to reach the heart toward the floor. It may not get there, but that's the idea, is reaching the heart toward the floor. This is puppy pose. And we're doing this today because we want to have a lot of good extension and length in the spine when we do squats. The spine needs to be long and open. If we round through the back, we don't get nearly as much out of the action. So taking a few deep breaths here. And then slowly start to raise the head up, walk the hands back in. And we'll bring the big toes to touch. Separate the knees really wide and sit the hips back into child's pose. Extending the arms straight overhead on the mat. So this is the version of child's pose that we often take in this class, with the knees wide apart. And if you look at this architecture, there's a lot of similarity with the things we need in a squat. There's deep hip flexion and deep knee flexion. However, the major difference here is that the big toes are touching and the knees are apart. So that's very different. If you were to try to do a squat this way, I don't think you would stay up very long. So let's come up. Let's bring the knees all the way together and the ankles together. And then sit the hips back. So this is just another version of child's pose. Sometimes we do this. This is actually the more traditional version. And so here we have alignment of the knees and the ankles, but the legs are together, which again doesn't really look like a squat. So let's come up again. Let's separate the knees a few inches. And this time, try to get the ankles in a line with the knees. So I have a straight line from the knee to the ankle on both sides, so my feet are not touching. And then try to sit back. So you'll notice this is a very different sensation. We don't do this very often. You may start to feel your knees talking to you a little bit, the inner hip or outer hip. It feels very different than what we're used to. But this is actually becoming a little bit more similar to what your lower leg needs to do in a squat. So let's come forward. Let's come up, and then let's shift the hips forward just a little bit, just to release the hip flexors. And go back and forth a few times. So sending the hips back, and then lifting up, sending them forward. And my hands are staying in the same position the whole time. I'm just shifting the hips up and back to get a little motion in the hip flexor, which is the front of the hip. And make sure you hold the navel into the spine, especially when you come forward. So don't come so far forward that you're starting to arch through the lower back. Good. All right, and then back to your tabletop position. Let's separate the knees a little bit more. So a few more inches, and then draw the ankles out to align with the knees. So I've just taken everything out a few more inches. And then try to sit back. And again, this is a different sensation than what we're used to. So just take it slowly, work within your range, and let's come up and back here too. So forward and back. Just gently moving in and out of the position to get the body used to these new sensations. Good, and then let's pause with the hips back. See if you can sit a little bit further back than maybe you could at the beginning. And it just feels very weird because we don't usually do this. But often we have to go where the weird sensations are to explore new things, create diverse movement. All right, come up, bringing the knees together, tuck the toes under, lift the hips up and back, downward facing dog. And take a few moments here and pedal the feet. So bending into one knee and then the other knee. So ankle mobility, again, very important. Lengthen the Achilles tendon in the calf, very important for doing a squat. So we're going to be working on that in a few moments. But just take a minute here to pedal the feet and then recommit to the length in your spine. Press into the floor and let that energy of pressing into the floor rise up your spine and reach your hips toward the ceiling. Good. And then slowly walking the feet up to the hands, forward fold. Bend the knees, sweep the hands up and overhead. Inhale, exhale, hands to heart center. Good. Take a moment to open up the sides of the body. So step the feet a little bit wider than hip distance apart. Inhale, reach the arms overhead. Flip one palm to the ceiling. So I'm flipping the right palm to the ceiling. Hold on with the left hand and pull yourself over to the left. Take a moment, breathe into the side of the body, the rib cage. Good, and then coming back to center, reverse the other hand. So flip the palm to the ceiling, hold on to the wrist and pull it over to the side. Good, and come back to center and release. All right, so we're going to check in doing our forward fold that we just did a minute ago. So inhale, raise the arms overhead. Exhale, hinge at the hips. Fold all the way down, fingertips to the floor. And take a moment here and feel the sensations in this forward fold. Feel the ankles, the backs of the calves, the hamstrings, the hips, the back. What's talking to you? What feels tight? What do you feel like is restricting you from going more deeply into the fold? Just notice, just be aware. And then bending the knees, sweeping the arms to the side, come up with a flat back, arms overhead. Exhale, hands to heart center. All right, so we're gonna do a calf stretch, and often we do this one at a time, but we're gonna try a double version today, which is very exciting. So you're gonna take your blanket, and I have a blanket folded into a square here. You're gonna place it to the top of your mat. And then you're just gonna roll up the mat around the blanket like you're making yoga mat sushi here. So I'm rolling it up, and you'll be able to control how far you roll. This is a pretty big roll. Maybe I want a little bit less. So maybe that's good. And then find your blocks, and you're gonna have them in front of you. You may wish to do this next to a wall because we're going to be standing on the blanket roll with both feet, which can make it a little more challenging to balance because it's an uneven surface. So having a wall close by or standing next to the wall is really great. But if you can, standing with the arches of your feet on your blanket roll. And then roll down, hold onto your blocks or the wall or whatever is near you to provide some stability. And you're just going to rock back and forth. So I'm going to roll the toes forward, roll the toes back, and the heels back. So forward and back a few times. And then I'm going to pause with the heels down. So I want to get the heels down toward the back of the roll as much as possible. And you're going to really feel an accentuation of the stretch in the calf, maybe the Achilles tendon. And that's good. That's what we're going for here. We're trying to increase our dorsiflexion, which is when the toes are higher than the heel here. And from here, you may want to try bending the knees and straightening. So just a little pulse up and down. Again, playing with movement in this dorsiflexed position. And then find a place where you feel really good stretch, no matter if it's with knees bent or straight, heels closer toward the ground or a little bit higher up. And breathe here for a few moments. Good, and then gently step off your blanket roll, nice and slowly. You can move your blocks out of the way, unroll the mat and move the blanket. And we'll check that forward fold again. So inhale, stand nice and tall, sweep the arms overhead. Exhale, hinge and fold, coming into your forward fold. And notice any differences. Do you feel any different sensations in the legs, the hips, maybe even the lower back? Do you feel like you have a little bit more range of motion coming into the forward fold? Or maybe not. We're all different. Good. And then bending the knees. Sweep the arms overhead. Inhale. Exhale. Hands to heart center. All right. So we're going to look at 3 different squat variations. And we'll do them now. Then we'll do a little flow. And then we'll recheck them. So bringing the feet hip distance apart or even closer, maybe big toes touch, heels slightly apart. Inhale, sweep the arms overhead, and exhale, sit the hips back like you're sitting in a chair. So coming into chair pose, this is a common yoga pose. Utkatasana, I think it translates as powerful pose. And what I've done is I'm really dumping the weight into the heels and shifting the hips back. So this is, I would consider this kind of a squat position, but the legs are together here. The spine is long, so I'm not overarching the lower back, nor am I rounding. I'm trying to keep a nice long spine that's just angled forward a little bit. Good. Press into the feet and come up. You're going to start to feel some work through the quads. Then we'll look at a more traditional squat, one that you might use if you're doing some deadlifts. So the feet here are about shoulder width apart. So they're wider than my hips, but the toes are pointing forward still. And here, and let's bring the hands to heart center. There's two things I want you to think about. One, the feet are rooted to the floor, but I'm imagining dragging them apart from each other. So there's this little action of trying to rip the mat in half. That's really going to stabilize and increase activation through the whole hip and quad area. And then as I bend back into the squat, sitting way, way back, I'm trying to keep the shins as vertical as possible. So I'm not letting the knees come forward. I want to go back. So going back as far as you can, trying to keep the knees over the ankles, even though that's really challenging. They're probably going to be a little bit forward, and that's okay as long as they're not super far forward. So here's your more traditional squat. One more inhale. Exhale, push into the feet, drag them apart, stand up. Good. And then we'll try a sumo squat. So the legs are really wide, and when they're really wide like this, I'm going to have heels slightly in and toes out about 45 degrees. But you're going to have to play with how far they're turned out because you really just want them to track with the knees. So as the knees get wider apart here, we externally rotate the thighs. And so we need to have the knees track in line with the toes. So look down, give yourself a little bend, and see, oh wait, my toes aren't quite in a line. They need to be here, they need to be here, and play with that a little bit. Good. And then hands to heart center, inhale, exhale, sit down. So this one is more about sitting down and a little bit back and less about sitting back. And then think about externally rotating the thighs. So there's this feeling of the thighs wrapping backwards. Good. Press into your feet, drag them apart as you stand up. Good. So those are our 3 squats we're looking at today. So let's do a little yoga and then we'll recheck. All right, inhale, raise the arms overhead. Exhale, hinge and fold. Start to shift the weight into the left foot. Take a really big step back with the right. So coming into high lunge, if you want to have your hands on blocks here, this is a nice time to do that. And then I'm going to bring both hands to the inside of this front foot, which means I'm going to heel toe this left foot over to the left side of the mat. So it's coming to the edge of the mat, and the toes are going to point up to that left corner of the mat. So it's a little bit of a diagonal. The toes are out. Good. And then bringing the right hand closer in underneath the face or the shoulder. Inhale and reach up into your twist. So we're twisting toward the bent leg, and then lift the hips up a little bit. Give yourself some space in the hips. Good, breathe. Nice long spine. And release coming down. And then I'm going to lower the back knee down, and you can keep the toes tucked or untucked. We're coming into this lizard pose here, and you can stay as high up as you want. So if you want to stay up on the hands, that's an option. If you can come down to your forearms, you could also do that. You could use a block to bring the floor a little bit closer to you if you want to be here. I'm going to stay up on my hands today. This is a deep stretch for the front of the right hip and then sort of the back of the left hip too. Good, and then keep both hands strong because you're going to step the left foot back to meet the right in a plank. So let's lift the back leg off and then step the left foot back. Plank pose. Good. And then inhale, lift the hips up and back, downward facing dog. So a couple breaths here if you want to pedal the feet. And then walking the feet toward the hands. Here's your forward fold. Let's inhale halfway so the spine is long and neutral. It becomes parallel to the floor. And then exhale, fold. And then inhale, come up with a flat back. Reach all the way overhead. Exhale, hands to heart center. Good. So let's do that on the other side. Inhale, overhead. Exhale, hinge and fold. Starting to shift the weight now into the right foot, taking a big step back with the left. Pause here in your high lunge. Elongate the spine, look forward. And then walking that front foot over to the edge of the mat. So the right foot is going to go to the edge of the mat with the toes pointing up toward the corner. Both hands inside. Good. And then placing the left hand maybe closer to under the face or under the shoulder. Lift the hips up and ease into your twist. Good. So I'm coming from a place of length in the spine. And because I'm lifting the hips up, I'm giving myself a lot of space to ease into the twist. It should feel a little easier than sometimes we do a twist that's a little bit tighter. Good, and then lowering the hand to the inside of the foot. We're going to lower the back knee down, and you can keep the toes tucked or untucked. And just pause here for a few breaths. Try to breathe. Lizard is a really intense pose. We have to have so much openness in the hips. So stay up as high as you need to. You could even be up on blocks here if getting down this far is really challenging. So find a place where you are meeting your edge but not going past it. Good, and then inhale, lift that back knee up. Exhale, step the right foot back, high plank. Pause here in your high plank, shoulders over the wrists. Then lower the knees and come all the way down to your belly. Good. Let's keep the shoulders near under the shoulder, the hands under the shoulders, and then walk them out to the sides a little bit. So they're going to be really wide, and I'm coming to the fingertips, and the elbows are pointing toward the ceiling. Inhale and start to curl the chest and the head off the mat, like you're a little fiddlehead unfurling in the sun. And then curling the head back down, lowering the chest. Good, let's do that a couple more times. Inhale, root through the pubic bone and the feet. And then exhale, unfurl. And then soften and come down. One more time, inhale to prepare, root through the tops of the feet and pubic bone. Exhale, rise up. You could also imagine that you're like a cobra rising out of a basket. Good. And come down. Excellent. Let's make a pillow with the hands and rest the forehead. Shake the hips side to side. And then I'm going to turn and rest on my left cheek. So left cheek to left hand here. And then bend the right foot. Start to reach back with the right hand. And if you don't have the foot with the hand, you could use a strap here. You could hold onto your pants, wherever it's accessible for you to try to make some contact. And draw the right heel toward the right glute. And as you draw the right heel in toward the glute, then think about pressing the thigh, pressing the quads into the floor. So that's just going to intensify the stretch a little bit more. Good, and release. And we'll come to the other side. So now left cheek on the hand turning toward the left. Right cheek on the hand and turning toward the left. Bend the left knee. Reach back, catch hold of the foot, the ankle, a strap, whatever is accessible for you, and drawing that heel close to the glutes. Give yourself a few moments to settle in, get used to that stretch, and then gently press the thigh into the floor. So you're not using all your force to press, just about 20 or 30% of your strength to add a little extra sensation to the stretch. Good, and release. Bringing the hands back under the shoulders, press yourself up through all fours, tucking the toes under, lifting the hips up and back, downward facing dog. And as always, do what you need to in your downward facing dog. Maybe bending both knees and then lifting the hips up and back. Maybe you want to be still. Maybe you want to move. Notice what your habitual pattern is when you come into downward facing dog. And then walking the feet toward the hands, coming into your forward fold. Feet are about hip distance and parallel. And from here, start to bend into the left knee. So kept the legs where they are. I'm just bending into the left knee. Place the left hand on the floor underneath the face. And inhale, come into a twist to the right. So this time I'm bending, I'm twisting away from the bent knee. And you're going to start to feel more of a stretch through the right IT band and outer hip. Good, and coming back down. We're going to switch sides, so bending into the right knee now, placing the right hand under the face. And inhale, open to the left in a twist. Arm reaches up toward the ceiling. And come back down. Bend the knees. Sweep the arms overhead. Inhale. Exhale. Hands to heart center. Good work. Standing at the top of your mat. Let's take a big step back with the right leg. So we're actually coming into crescent warrior. So the feet are on two parallel railroad tracks, but the back heel is lifted here. So both hips can point forward. Bend deeply into the front knee. And if you want, you can raise the arms overhead, or you can bring hands to hips, whatever is kinder for your body right now. And we're going to practice a few knee dips. So it's coming into sort of a lunge, just to work more quad and hip strength. So let's bend the back knee just a few inches and then straighten. Bend the back knee and straighten. So do that a couple times. Maybe you want to do 3, maybe you want to do 5. Depending on how you feel today. Little shaking is okay. It's a new movement. You don't often do this in yoga either. Good. And then pause with the legs straight. Bend into that front knee. And you're going to pivot on the back foot coming into warrior 2. So set up your warrior 2 legs. That front heel now intersects with the arch of the back foot parallel or turned in. Bend deeply into that front thigh. Think about external rotation of the front thigh. And the arms float parallel to the earth. So we're just going to hold this warrior 2 today because it really builds a lot of quad strength and hip strength. Taking a deep breath in. Deep breath out. Good. And then bring both toes to face the long edge of the mat here. So the feet are parallel to the short edge of the mat. And we're going to stand up tall. Inhale. Exhale. Hinge and fold. And if you want to bring hands to blocks, that's a beautiful option. If you want to come to the floor, wherever you are, try to keep length in the spine still just for a few breaths. Pressing into the outer edges of the feet, giving yourself a little bend in the knees, just a little micro bend. And then we'll lunge side to side here to warm up the inner groin. So inhale, bend into one knee. Exhale, come to center. Inhale, bend into the other knee. And exhale, center. So go back and forth with the rhythm of your breath. Inhaling, lunge. Exhale, center. Inhale, lunge. Exhale, center. And if you want, you could pause for a few rounds of breath on one side, really opening up the inner groin on the other side. Or you could move more dynamically, going back and forth more quickly. Just work with what you feel you need right now. Good, and coming back to center. Press into the outer edges of the feet, bend the knees, come up with a flat back. Good. And we'll go right into warrior two on the other side. So turning the back toes out. So these are my right toes, but you might be going the other way. So facing the back edge of the mat, coming into warrior two. So reposition your feet if they've been adjusted. Float the arms parallel with the earth. Sink deeply into that front knee. Maybe it's over the front ankle, tracking in line with the middle toe. And feel what strength it takes in the quads to maintain warrior two. Good, and then pivoting on the back foot, coming into crescent warrior, facing the back of the mat now. So now the back heel is lifted, both hips are pointing toward the back of the mat. Hands can be overhead or on the hips, and we'll do those knee dips on this side. So bending into the back knee and then straightening. And bend, the knee goes toward the floor and straighten. And again, do as many as is comfortable for you right now. Good, and straighten one more time and step the back foot up. Maybe you want to pause in mountain just for a few moments. Good. And then let's step the feet wide again. So we're going to come into a sumo squat stance like we talked about at the beginning. So in this one, our legs are wide, but the heels are in and the toes are out. And again, check to see if their toes are in line with the knees when you bend them. Because everyone's hip rotation is going to be a little bit different. So you're going to need to play with your body. All right. So let's float the arms parallel to the floor and bend deeply into the legs. So coming into this squat position. And then inhale, straighten the legs, reach up. Exhale, bend back into your squat. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, lower down. One more time. Inhale up. And exhale, lower down. And now we'll hold the sumo squat. And I'm going to bend the elbows coming into cactus arms. So this is goddess pose. It's a powerful pose. And again, think about the knees going back toward the hips. Pressing the feet apart from each other a little bit isometrically. Good, especially as you come up. So press the feet apart, press the floor away, come all the way up. And heel toe, the feet together. Good. All right, so let's recheck all of those squats. So we'll start with chair pose. So chair pose, you have the toes together, heels apart, or the feet can be hip distance. Depends on what feels good to you today. And then bending the knees, sending the arms overhead, sitting the hips way, way back, chair pose. Weight is in the heels. Send your hips back even further than you think. And then press into the feet, stand all the way up. Hands to heart center. All right, you're almost done. Version 2. So, traditional squat, the feet are about shoulder width, maybe a little wider, maybe a little narrower, depending on what you like. Hands to the heart center. And as you sit way, way back, you're trying to keep the shins as vertical as possible. Yes, so long spine. Neutral spine is just angled forward. So I'm not rounding here. And I'm not overarching either. Good. Sit way, way back, and then press the feet apart and up, come up. Good. Last time, so we just did the sumo squat, but let's check one more time. So feet angled out, hands to heart center. Inhale, stand up tall. Exhale, come down into your sumo squat. Good, and I feel like I can come lower now. I have more range. Good, and then press the feet apart to come up. Excellent. There's actually one more squat that we haven't done yet, and that is a traditional yogi squat or malasana. So we're going to do a restorative version of it because we're starting to quiet the body down. So you might want to have a block. You don't have to do this with a block, but we're going to sit on the block if you want. So in malasana, the feet are where they were in the traditional squat, where they're about shoulder distance apart, but the toes are turned out like the sumo squat. So positioning yourself and then sitting the hips down, and you could not sit on a block, you could just hover here if that's comfortable for you. But if you want to quiet things down a little bit, you could sit on the block. And it feels really good to sit on the block. It's very comforting. So if you're here, then the knees press into the elbows and the elbows press into the knees, and you're pressing your hands together, and that creates this really nice connected, strong feeling through the whole body, and it helps you elongate the spine. So this is a deep hip opener, but hopefully it doesn't feel that deep after all the work that we've done today. One more deep inhale. Exhale, you can sigh it out. Good. And we're going to come all the way down to our backs again, but have a block close by to one hand. So coming all the way down. And maybe you want to draw the knees into the chest when you get here, rock side to side. And then place the feet on the floor, just like we did at the beginning of class, knees bent toward the ceiling. And take your right ankle, place it on your left knee. And just take a moment here, take both palms and traction the hips away from the rib cage just a little bit. Give yourself a little space here. And then release. And maybe you want to interlace the hands behind the left thigh, lift the left foot off the ground. Flex both feet strongly. And draw the left thigh in toward the chest. But as you do that, you're also thinking about the right knee moving away from the chest. So there's always this little opposition here in figure 4. So we're starting to stretch the outer hips and glutes. We asked them to do a lot of work today, so now we're going to give them a chance to just release any tension and relax. Good. Place the left foot back down. Keep crossing the right leg all the way over. So now knee over knee, the legs are crossed, and now hug the legs in. You're going to get a different stretch sensation through the right hip. Good, and then lower the foot back down. Shift the hips a couple of inches to the right and drop the knees all the way down to the left. So coming into a twist here, and arms can be out in a T position, out by your sides. Starting to quiet the body down. Let the breath return to normal. Good, and then slowly lifting the knees back up and unwinding the legs. Recenter the spine, the hips, so we can do the other side. Taking the left ankle on top of the right knee now. Take a moment with the palms to press the hips away from the rib cage. And then release. Interlace the hands behind the right thigh. Float the right foot off the ground. Flexing both feet. Head and neck are relaxed on the mat. Shoulders relaxed. And again, always think about drawing the right knee in while simultaneously moving the left knee away from the body. And lower that foot back down, and let's keep crossing the leg all the way over. So knee over knee, left leg is on top and holding the knees now. So gather the knees up, squeeze them into the chest. And release. Put the foot back down on the floor, move the hips a couple inches to the left, drop the knees over to the right. Extend the arms out by the sides. So your reclining twist, you can always do this just with the knees stacked. You don't have to do this twisted position with the legs. Good, and then unwinding, coming back to center. And then we're going to lift the hips up enough just to slide a block underneath the hips. So you're coming into supported bridge. And you can stay here if you want. This is a beautiful expression to open the front of the hip. If you wanted to change it up to a little different variation, you can extend one leg and draw the other knee in toward the chest, just gently. Everything is gentle at this point in our practice. And release. And the other side, straightening the leg. And release. And if you've had the knees bent this whole time, everyone's going to join us in the supported bridge. Lift the hips up enough to slide the block away. Roll the spine back down. Straighten the legs, and coming into your Shavasana posture today. And you can use any props or modifications you like to be very comfortable now. Make any more modifications, changes, find any more pillows or blankets you want to be as comfortable as you can. Start to become aware of all the parts of your body that are in contact with the earth. Maybe it's the backs of the heels, the hips, the shoulders, the back of the head, the backs of the hands. and let them sink. Let them be heavy and soft. And you're welcome to stay here as long as you wish today. But if you're ready to end practice with me today, start to deepen the breath. Drawing deeper inhales and exhales in and out through the nose. Beginning to wiggle fingers and toes, ankles and wrists. And when you're ready, rolling to one side and pausing there just for a moment of gratitude. Be thankful for your body and everything that it can do. Be thankful for the community of friends that we practice in. And be grateful for someone else in your life. Use your hands to press yourself up to a seated position. Bringing the hands to the heart center in prayer. The light in me honors the light in each of you. Namaste. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. If you enjoyed this class, please consider supporting my work and subscribing to this channel. Until next week, my friends. Namaste.